Y'all, my God. My God, the news is newsing. The news is newsing. Hello, YouTube. Welcome to the Lurie Daniel Favors Show. This is an opportunity for you all to get a sneak peek into what it is we're talking about here on Urban View, channel 126, where talk empowers and becomes action on the SiriusXM dial. We got a lot to get into today. Before I do, and before we get into all of the ickiness of what is the news, I just want to shout out two additional companies that I just learned. One company I already shouted out, Curlmix. Curlmix.com looks as though they may be forced to close their doors. And for those of you who use natural hair products, I find that their products to be amazing. If they are going out of business, I want to make sure they go out with a bang, because a lot of our businesses end up closing because they don't have the injection of capital that they need. I also, however, just learned about another company, a Black-owned company that looks as though they're going to be going out of business as well. So let's send them out with a bang. And this is a Black-owned whole body deodorant company called Funk Off. That's a dope name. PHUNKOFF.com. We're going to be talking also a bit today about the Blackout Black Friday situation. I've already shared with my audience how excited I am that I'm only doing Black-owned products for my family. And my family is like all in on this. Although if you know of a Black-owned coat making company, because my daughter was like, Mommy, I'm trying to upgrade my coat from last year. And I'm like, yes, you do need to upgrade from your winter coat. So if you know of a Black-owned jacket company, let a sister know. I'd go to companies like Thuji for my Black-owned handbags. I know there's Telfar and others as well, but Thuji is one that I just happen to like a lot. But we are doing on the Lurie Daniel Favors Show an intensive outreach to entrepreneurs. So consider this my intensive outreach. If you are a Black-owned business, and yes, as I said to my audience, if you do shea butter and hair stuff, that's fine too, even though I already shouted out Curl Mix. But I'm also thinking about companies that do things that we aren't aware of, like this deodorant company, which I'm now about to order a bunch of deodorant from because they are going out of business, and I want to do my bit to support as I can. But I think that, and this is not the topic for today, but I'm just going to say this because it's something I'm going to have to come back to a little later on. When we have Black-owned businesses, as we are moving into more Black-owned businesses being established and created because we have Black people are being thrust out of the integrated America that we used to know, it's going to be really important that we connect Black-owned businesses with Black media so that we have a built-in ecosystem that will allow for the promotion of products and resources that are available to us. I was just mentioning about Vontel Eyewear, which is an eyeglass company that we've had on this show before. I'm hearing some concerns. It's happening to everybody. And as we are cultivating and recognizing that we need Black-owned businesses to thrive, we're also going to have to, those of us who sit in a media space, also going to have to really do our job of making sure we're highlighting these businesses. Advertising dollars be damned. Advertising dollars be damned. Having said that, there's a lot I want to get into today because it's gross, but we got to talk about it because the news is newsing. First up, it appears as though the government shutdown is over as a result of everything we've been talking about over this week. Donald Trump signed the legislation into law. The government is shut down. The government shutdown is over technically for 2 months until January the 30th, in which time we'll be doing all this all over again. Now, in the intermediate, a number of other things have happened. We're going to talk about that as well because this creates an entirely new landscape for healthcare, and we're going to have to talk about that. But one of the things that happened yesterday as a result of the shutdown being over was that Representative Adelita Grijalva out of Arizona was finally sworn in. Amina, I'm going you to pull the two clips from Adelita Grijalva. We have two of them from her because she had some things to say. Not only did she have some things to say when it came to MAGA Mike Johnson needing to swear her in, she also had some things to say when it came to the fact that it took that man this long to swear her in. So, Amina, I'm going to share my screen with the good people on the YouTube so that they can see it because Adelita Grijalva being sworn into office created a situation where she was able to provide the 218th vote on the discharge petition for the Jeffrey Epstein files. Now, that really matters, even though yesterday, y'all, did you see the emails that were released? My God, I know that we don't talk about Jeffrey, no, until everybody is talking about Jeffrey. And now these emails got released, this trove of 20-some thousand emails that got put out there. And Donald Trump is all wrapped up, tied up, and tangled up in it. MAGA, somewhere out there, you are crying big tears because you were technically right. All this time, I thought y'all would be an extra. There really has been a secretive cabal of people in political power who got a lot of money, who are running an international pedophile ring. I just didn't know it was your guy. I mean, I knew it was your guy, but you didn't know it was your guy, but now we all know it's your guy. Anyway, let's listen to Adelita Grijalva, who has some things to say as she's being sworn in. We're going to listen to her. Hold on, let me rewind this just a minute. Amina, let's hear the clip now.
Our democracy only works when everyone has a voice. This includes the millions of people across the country who have experienced violence and exploitation, including Liz Stein and Jessica Michaels, both survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse. They are here in the gallery with us this evening. Thank you for being here. Just this morning, House Democrats released more emails showing that Trump knew more about Epstein's abuses than he previously acknowledged. It's past time for Congress to restore its role as a check and balance on this administration and fight for we, the American people. We need to fight for our immigrant communities and veterans. We need to stand up for our public schools, children, and educators. We need to respect tribal sovereignty in our environment. We need to stand up for LGBTQ+ rights, because that's what the American people expect us to do. Fight for them.
Now, Amina, let's pause this clip here because you'll be able to hear the rest of the clip in the podcast episode later on today. Lurie breaks it down. But I want to go now to the clip where she immediately, upon being sworn in after giving this wonderful speech, which she also ended in Spanish, she immediately decides that she got something she wants to say to MAGA Mike Johnson. Take a listen to how she had some words for your man who is currently running the House right now. Take a listen.
What is most concerning is not what this administration has done, but what the majority in this body has failed to do. Hold Trump accountable as a co-equal branch of government that we are.
Come on, hermana.
It has been 50 days since the people of Arizona's 7th Congressional District elected me to represent them. 50 days that over 800,000 Arizonans have been left without access to the basic services that every constituent deserves. This is an abuse of power. One individual should not be able to unilaterally obstruct the swearing in of a duly elected member of Congress for political reasons.
She had time today. She had time today, and she was not playing with MAGA Mike Johnson. Now, remember, it wasn't just her being sworn in that took place yesterday. She references all of the emails that were also shared with everybody. And again, later on in the podcast episode, you'll get to hear from a number of folks who are also running for office. Shout out to the Hellcats. These are 4 female veterans who are running for Congress to flip the House. We don't have time to play their video today, but if you listen to the podcast later on Lurie Breaks It Down, you will get a chance to hear that video clip. But one of the things that we are now dealing with is the fallout from everything else that's going on. So let's back up a little bit to make sure we are all on the same page. Healthcare as we know it is over. We are back in a phase where we no longer have these subsidies that were a part and parcel of the Affordable Care Act plan, which means people are going from paying, say, as I heard Representative Ro Khanna this morning on Urban View Mornings, shout out to the Urban View Mornings crew. He has people in his district who are going from paying $44 a month for their chemotherapy and cancer medicines to now paying $2,100 a month because the subsidies are no longer in place. And which is crazy to me because think about all the people who started a drug that you can't just get off of because you can no longer afford it, like Ozempic or any of these other weight adjusting drugs that a lot of people are taking for a variety of reasons. You may have started taking a drug protocol when you were gainfully employed, had health insurance, had access to the ACA subsidies, and now you are either stuck with the reality of coming off of those drugs because you can no longer afford them and deciding between paying for your health care or your housing situation. It is absolutely disgusting how people have been Project 2025 into poverty, but that's basically where we're at. So the Affordable Care Act subsidies have expired, and we're in a situation right now where this is going to last. This current reality, this current shutdown being over, only goes until January the 30th, which again, the fact that, I'm not even going to talk about the 8 Democrats who abandoned, whatever. The point is that this is where we now have to decide what are we going to do next. We are firmly in the midterms, and considering the fact that people have to make decisions about whether or not they're going to buy health care, we are going to be looking at a lot of people who are choosing to not buy health care. And what that means for the rest of us is that all of us are going to experience increased health care premiums because health care insurance operates on a profit model. And the more people you have in the insurance pools, the more you're able to spread out the costs. The fewer people you have in insurance pools, the fewer people you're able to spread the cost over, which means all of us who are left in the insurance pools are going to have to pay a whole lot more money. So it's time for a lot of us to go on the offensive. It's not going to be enough to just get the subsidies back. We spend a lot of time talking about the fact that this week in particular, the only reason we don't have universal health care and health care for all is because of white nationalism, like white people's racism, and industry lobbyists like organizations like the American Medical Association and the healthcare lobby that basically pays elected officials to not give us access to health care. And speaking of people who get paid, if you live in South Carolina and you have Lindsey Graham as your senator, or you live in Missouri and you've got Josh Hawley, or you live in Texas and you've got Ted Cruz, you really need to be looking at them like they cuckoo for fucking Cocoa Puffs, because these people wrote into the legislation that was voted on to reopen the government the ability for them to get millions of dollars in their personal pockets, not for the constituents from whom they just took health care, not from the constituents who they forced to not have access to SNAP for the last 13 days, but basically in their personal pockets because they were a part of the investigation into what was happening around January the 6th. It's looking guilty to me. It's feeling like they're guilty. So we have to ask ourselves, what do we want? Personally, I want health care for everybody. I want universal health care, and we're going to have to fight for it, which means you're going to have to take on some of this work and some of these assignments. Those of you who have logged into these healthcare exchanges and you realize what your new premiums are going to be, it's got to be hashtag post your premiums. We need people who are going to be able to show online, on social media, calling your elected officials. You've got one congressperson, you've got two senators from your state. Everybody's got two senators and one congressional representative. You're going to have to call them. You're going to have to let them know my insurance premiums went from $150 every 2 weeks to $2,000 every 2 weeks. What the fuck am I supposed to do, son? What I'm supposed to do with that shit? I can't have health care and housing and food at the same time. And it's all thanks to you. So this feels like an opportunity where we should be demanding universal fucking health care. Sure, yeah, get the subsidies back, but them subsidies weren't enough anyway. Universal health care for everybody. And if your candidates or your elected official is not willing to run on that, not willing to negotiate, start with that as a negotiating point, then they need to be primaried. And we're going to have a conversation about people getting primaried, because I think everybody who is a corporate Democrat primary the fuck out of them people because they don't care. And we have to have elected officials who are going to care. Zohran Mamdani, Dorcelis Aprelis, I know I just messed up her name. All the people who won on the Democratic Socialist Association lines. You need to look at what they did. Now, I know that makes the Democrats very, very nervous, but fuck you. Pay us. Like, do what you're supposed to do. These people are running on platforms that speak to affordability. That's all the shit that matters right now. That's all that matters. So contact your elected officials. This pressure is going to have to elevate. And frankly, I know a lot of y'all thinking this system don't really work. Well, Cletus, if you got another system for us to operate from, cool, that's fine. But until you do, we're going to have to work the system that we got. We're going to have to work the system that we got. Elections are about distributing resources. And I just got to take a moment to say we would not have any of this happening if we had Kamala Harris in office. If the Democrats were in office and actually had political power, we would not be in this situation. Them 8 Democrats who bitched out, we would be able to absorb that if you had people in power. And just for those of you who think that, you know, well, she wasn't really that black, and I didn't like the way she laughed, and I'm not going to vote for her just because she's a woman. I'm just saying, if we'd have had a Kamala Harris president, here's some of the things we'd still have. Here's what we'd have. We'd have civil rights. We'd have voting rights. We'd have an expansion of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We'd have more women. We'd have more black people, more people of color in key positions of power. You'd have gotten $25,000 for a down payment on your house. But instead, you got somebody offering you a $50,000 mortgage. And can we talk about the $50,000 mortgage for just, I'm sorry, not a $50,000 mortgage. A 50-year mortgage. I just going to take just a minute. I wasn't going to spend too much time on this, but I want to take just a minute to show you all the lunacy of a 50-year mortgage. This is what your president is offering. You could have had $25,000 in a down payment for a mortgage if you'd have voted for Kamala Harris. I mean, not y'all, but y'all's cousins. But this is what you get with the 50-year mortgage. If you're looking at a house purchase price of $300,000, you are going to, under a 15-year mortgage, have a $2,254 monthly payment. Under a 30-year mortgage, you're going to have a $1,530 monthly payment. Under a 50-year mortgage, you're going to have a $1,294 monthly payment. Now, if that's all you're paying attention to because you don't do math, well, then, yeah, it's going to look kind of easy for you to say, well, we should have a 50-year mortgage. But could you notice the rest of the chart for those of you who are looking? Because in a 15-year mortgage on a $300,000 home purchase, and this is brought to you by Fannie Mae's mortgage calculator. I'm not pulling these numbers out the side of my ass cheeks. If you have a $300,000 house with a 15-year mortgage, in addition to the $300,000, you're going to pay an additional $105,720 in interest. That's a lot, but it's a third of the cost of the house. If you are looking at a 30-year mortgage with a $300,000 home, you are going to spend an additional $250,800 in total interest. More money, but almost the full price of the house, but not quite. If you have a 50-year mortgage, you are going to pay an additional $476,400 in interest alone, which basically means you are renting from your bank forever. But when your shit break in your house, you gotta fix it. So it's you and your bank until you die, and anything that goes wrong, why not just be a renter? Oh, and that might actually be what they want, because all of the Blackstones and the Zillows have bought up all of the single family homes, and they want to turn you into a permanent renters class. What the fuck do I know? I'm just somebody who's got houses and appreciates this sort of information and data. So we are in a situation where you would not have had this. You would have had $25,000 in a down payment for a house. You would have had $50,000 in startup capital for new businesses. So we would have had businesses like Funk Off, Punkoff, which is a black-owned deodorant company that apparently is now going out of business. We would have had all these businesses going out of business. Instead, what we've got under Donald Trump and the Republicans is over 1 million people laid off this year, and an economy that has been proactively dismantled such that economic destruction is pretty much all that's guaranteed. You would have had $6,000 for families with new babies. Instead, you got a healthcare system where can't nobody afford to have sex, let alone have a baby. Is anybody thinking about coming right now inside somebody else when you might have a whole ass additional human being to feed? I don't think so. Thank God for birth control, and thank God I live in a blue state where me and my IUD go together forever. And in addition to that, you've got OBGYNs and other medical specialists who are basically abandoning rural, poor, and any other sort of community left, right, and center. You could have had under Kamala Harris an expansion of student loan debt cancellation, but no, we have instead canceled funding for higher education. And now we've got states like Tennessee that said, who needs a bachelor's degree to teach these little kids? Not a single person. Just get somebody out of high school. Hell, Laura Ingalls only had a one-room schoolhouse, and we can do it. This is the lunacy of where we're at right now. All of which is to say, yes, we do blame MAGA for all of this, but we can also place the blame squarely at the feet of those of you, not you, because I know you voted properly, but squarely at the feet of those of our cousins who decided it wasn't worth it to go find time to vote, who said she wasn't black enough, you didn't like how she smiled, she's got too much vagina, too much uterus, she used to work as a prosecutor, and Trump is going to give me a stimmy check. Which means we also have to remind ourselves that our entertainment industry players, and yes, they're going to catch it, also played a key role in helping to spread misinformation. So please stop listening to people like Charlemagne the God. Interestingly enough, yesterday when everyone else was talking about the Epstein files and the Epstein emails, you know what Fox News was talking about? Charlemagne the God and his commentary on anything. I don't know why, but it's saying a thing. Stop listening to Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg, Sexy Red, Kodak Black, Lil Wayne, 50 Cent, Kanye West, and other black entertainers who got pardons or otherwise escaped legal or financial trouble as a result of supporting Trump. That also includes stop voting for people who are in third parties who have not done the work of actually doing the infrastructure development to have a shot at getting half of the electoral votes that they would need to actually be president, which means stop voting for a Cornel West. Just because you like him don't mean he has the infrastructure to win. And if you waste your vote on someone like a Cornel West, who also had a hell of a lot of financial trouble, that he was in. Follow the fucking money. Jill Stein, where is she now? And I don't want to hear what she's doing interviews. She has no solutions because she had no infrastructure to win. You wasted your vote. This is not about giving charity to the homeless because you feel guilty that you ate good last night and you can see that they're hungry. It's about elections. And if you did all of those things, please commit to never doing them again. Let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein, because we want to talk about Jeffrey. Yo. Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, baby. The emails are emailing. Now, the reason we got a treasure trove of multiple thousands of emails yesterday, and I, like you, am curious as to the fact that the Democrats did sit on these emails for enough time to release them now. Don't know how long they've had them, but I just think that's curious because they should get some of this smoke too. But we're basically in a situation where Jeffrey Epstein's emails are now out. And your man's is in all, he wrapped up, tied up, tangled up in the emails. Now, I know that the FBI reassigned thousands of agents, pulled them off of very important cases so that they could spend tens upon tens of thousands of hours trying to redact all of the references to Donald Trump in the Epstein files. Here's the thing, though. When you have email threads, just because I delete all the things in my email chain doesn't mean that you deleted all the things in your email chain. And y'all, you can now, there are tools that you can use to search the Jeffrey Epstein files for a whole host of it. Deepak Chopra was in the Epstein emails. Lawrence Summers, who was a part of the head of Harvard University, was a part of the email chain. Everybody was emailing this person. And as someone who does not often reply to emails, I felt much better about my decision to be discriminating in the emails that I respond to. But we basically have a situation where Madame Ghislaine Maxwell, who was one of the women who was very close to Jeffrey Epstein, and she was previously serving a 20-year sentence in a maximum security prison. You may recall that she recently did an interview with someone from the Trump administration, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanchett. And Todd Blanchett interviewed her, and she said, I've never seen Donald Trump do anything inappropriate. In fact, I don't even recall having seen him at Jeffrey's home. He was always a gentleman in every sense of the word. As a result of that interview that she did with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanchett, who was instructed to go interview her by our Attorney General Pamela Bondi, she got moved from that maximum security prison to a minimum security prison where she now has a puppy. She got a whole ass puppy in jail and a minimum security prison, minimum security prison that has such minimum security. They had to give her special permission to be there because the crimes for which she was tried and convicted were so egregious. She did not qualify to sit in this prison. It's giving guilty, Donald. It's giving guilty. But basically, we now have a situation where we can conclude that the Deputy Attorney General who went to interview Madame Maxwell knew about these emails, knew they were there, and tried to pull a fast one over the American people. And it might have worked had Ro Khanna not gotten a tip from Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC, who's one of the few white men whose newscasts I will still sometimes watch. And Lawrence O'Donnell was basically like, hey man, why don't you just subpoena the estate if you can't get it from the Department of Justice? And Ro Khanna, representative of California, was like, that's a good idea. So that's how we got all these emails from the Jeffrey Epstein estate. But basically, the Department of Justice knew all of this. Remember when Pam Bondi was like, I have the emails sitting on my desk. I have the client list sitting here, and we are ready to release them right away. And then as somebody was like, girl, shh, don't say that, because if you release the emails, then you in the client list, and Trump is all in the don't say his word. And basically, she then decided to put out some information that was some BS information that had already been released. So MAGA was already looking at her like, wait a minute, we thought you were going to release the Epstein files. We put you in power to release the Epstein files. Kash Patel, who's getting in a lot of trouble right now because he keep flying that damn plane to go watch his little girlfriend sing a song. I don't know what type of music she's sang, but he basically be flying hither and thither on our dime, and he can call it out for it. But what does he do in return? He fires people. He fires people from the FBI. But he also is getting in trouble because apparently he be breaking promises internationally, which is part of the reason why yesterday when I told y'all that UK was like, well, we're not doing to share no more information with you. Half the reason they was doing that is because Kash Patel be showing up at meetings inappropriately dressed, bringing militarized, weaponized people with him into countries where you cannot have that sort of weaponry and then not able to come off the damn plane. It's a whole investigation happening into Kash Patel, but Kash Patel is white, entitled, and incompetent. I know technically he's not white, but he's white adjacent, so we're going to give him that honorific. Anyway, basically right now, Pamela Bondi, the Attorney General, is getting her ass handed to her from left, right, and center, because how do you not look like you were somebody who was in on it? Kash Patel, Deputy Attorney Todd Blanchett, and not Laura Loomer. What's that other one? The crazy, Boebert. Lauren Boebert, representative out of Colorado, and Donald Trump. Child, they pulled Lauren Boebert yesterday into the situation room, honey. You know what gets discussed in the situation room? Plans for war or any other conversation that you don't want anyone to be able to record. They pulled her into the situation room to try to get her to remove her name from the discharge petition. The discharge petition that Adelita Grijalva was able to add the 218th signature to. Lauren Boebert, to her credit, was like, what I'm not going to do is that. And so her name is still on the discharge petition. And baby, they're going to vote on that discharge petition next week. But here's what's been really interesting. As evil as we know or have been told Jeffrey Epstein is, he basically thought Donald Trump was like the devil. In multiple emails, he's like, I've met some very bad people. None as bad as Donald Trump. Not one decent cell in his body. There's correspondence where people are like, they're just trying to take down Trump. And Jeffrey's like, and what's crazy about that is I'm the one who could actually take down Donald Trump. There are emails between Jeffrey Epstein and people in high positions in Russia where Jeffrey's like, I used to give all my information about how to control Trump to such and such, but such and such is no longer alive. So I guess I can give it to you. Like, and if you listen to the podcast, I go through this much more slowly. Lurie breaks it down. The podcast will be out around 2:30, maybe 3 o'clock later today. Well, I'll break all this down in much more detail. I'm just giving you all the snippet version because you need to know what's happening. Jeffrey Epstein was the devil, but the devil thought Trump was diabolical. And even more devilish. New York Times, interestingly enough, also comes up in a lot of the Jeffrey Epstein emails. Why? Because at a certain point back in 2015, people were emailing the New York Times talking about do you want to see this was Jeffrey Epstein emailing a reporter at the New York Times where he said, would you like to see photos of Donald and girls in bikinis in my kitchen? I've got the photos. I want you to show them. And the New York Times reporter was like, yes. Do you remember the New York Times posting that? Jeffrey Epstein is talking about how there was one point where Donald Trump was so focused on getting to the children who was in the bikinis in the pool, and they are children. I know people like to use these underage women. Underage women, the proper word for underage women is girl. It's children. These were babies. These were 12, 13, 14 little girls. And so we should just use the proper language. There was one story that Jeffrey Epstein retells in the emails where Donald Trump was so busy trying to get outside to stick his little toady self into whomever he could find and assault that he ran into a glass door. His nose print was on the door. This is described in the emails because that's how thirsty this man was to get out into the space where the little girls was at. And y'all voted for this. Y'all, MAGA, voted for this. Now, I got to be honest with you. When MAGA would talk about the fact that, going back to Russia, this also makes sense for me as to why it is that Donald Trump will do anything Russia tells him to do. Russia got all this information from Jeffrey Epstein about Donald Trump, according to the emails, and have been getting it for years. Do you know how much information they have on that man? And this ain't even the word. They didn't release the photos. They haven't released the actual files, and it's this bad. It's bad. Having said all that, I know at some point, because I'm going to bring this to a close, and I say this a bit more extensively in my podcast, but I know at some point MAGA's going to see this video and they're going to write something on my YouTube channel like, you should cry harder or cope, or, they do this little thing because they mistake passionate, amazing delivery for hysterics. And I get it. And they're going to say that, you're crying harder. You should, you're all just coming for Trump. And the reality is Trump don't even like you. And the next episode, on the next commercial break, after the commercial break, I'm going to play for Urban View some of the clips where Donald Trump is talking to Laura Ingraham, and she's like, well, we've got talented people here. And Donald Trump is like, no, you don't. You don't have any talent. You have got nobody who knows how to do the work that these foreigners know how to do. And so, Donald Trump don't even like you, number one. Second, again, only a fool would mistake passionate and amazing delivery for hysterics. And third, do you see my face? Do you see my face, MAGA? Really, do you see it? Because what you should see is a lack of tears. You should see a more of a look of amused derision, a smug sense of contempt, because my face right now, that's what that looks like. You see, my community has known this about y'all's community and whiteness culture for a long time. Y'all been sexual monsters since we came and encountered you all on slave ships. Y'all have, and at some point, I'm going to talk about the sexual abuse that was taking place on plantations, but y'all passed laws to make it acceptable for you to rape black men and women. Like, y'all passed laws to not only rape black men and women, but then force the children that were born from the rapes of the women to be enslaved. Y'all appropriate or you applaud people like Thomas Jefferson, who was raping little children, forcing those little children to have the children born from the rape, and then kept them children who were his babies, his own children, his own seed, his own lineage, enslaved. Y'all are deviants. There is something sick about whiteness culture that allows you to be firmly ensconced in the most diabolical, disgusting yuckiness of humanity. We are disgusted with you, perpetually in a state of disgust at the blight that whiteness culture leaves on humanity. We are disgusted at the ways in which you refuse to change, disgusted at the result that is of all of this. As a result of all of this, we're in a situation where once they get Donald Trump up out of here, or he meets his maker on some great day in the morning, we're going to have President J.D. Vance. That should worry everybody. Oh, but you know who else was in the Jeffrey Epstein emails? Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is in the Jeffrey Epstein emails with a simple phrase that says, that was fun. What was fun, Peter? What was fun? Peter Thiel, the billionaire who's also behind J.D. Vance's rise to fame. What was fun that you were doing with Jeffrey Epstein? And is this why you look the way that you look and you're aging like Skeletor? I don't know. But these are some sick people. And the society we are now going to be forced to build had better grapple with all this because, baby,
30 seconds.
I have the ick. I have a commercial break that's too brief for me to even go take a shower, but it feels like I should take a shower just from having talked about all of this with you because it's disgusting. That's your president. That's the Republican Party. USA.
10 seconds.
Heading to commercial break.